the economic viability of the city, how individual buildings participate in these issues becomes very important beyond the perimeter of the building itself. So what we're talking about when we begin to look at sustainable communities, in New York City, we have dense building, but we also have extensive green space, and we're getting more of that. We have pedestrian accessible amenities. The transit system is accessible by pedestrians, both at work and at home. What we don't have yet, I'm going to talk a little more about that on a couple of slides, community-centered resources, optimized renewable energy sources. We are getting more energy-efficient buildings, both as new buildings and with the retrofit of existing buildings. But we're not doing much with respect to utilization of our non-potable water resources. Stormwater management is very difficult. We have some detention. We have very little percolation to refresh the aquifer. And solid waste, which is a very highly charged political issue, we're not really doing much with at all with regard to exploiting that as a resource. So I think as we look at these things, as we progress New York City through the 21st century and into the 22nd, is to look at synergies and look at trying to build interlocking, cascading systems within the infrastructure of the city itself. To look how green space, stormwater management, and non-potable water utilization can interact and help one another. Looking at all of these issues, for example, on community scale utilities. What that has to do with non-potable water utilization is that if we had central cooling plants and if we had distribution of sewage treatment effluent, we could recharge our cooling towers with wastewater rather than using precious potable water for that. One of the issues that we have is I think that we try to do a lot of things at the wrong scale. You know, a lot of my clients want to have the photovoltaic cells on the spandrel panels of their building. They're oriented vertically, so they lose about 25 to 30% of their annual production because they're improperly oriented. They're saving money because they're leaving out something that might otherwise be there, the spandrel material, which boils down to, actually, if you look at it, about $6 to $8 a square foot. The photovoltaic panel itself probably costs $40 a square foot, and you do the math and you find out that you're probably getting about $32 worth of photovoltaic production for about $50. So really what these people ought to have on the spandrels of their building is a sign that says, my PV system is on top of a big box in Jersey where it belongs. Okay? So optimal capitalization rather than, individual buildings. So, and similarly, at the city scale, and I know this is very far off, but solid waste is potentially a very valuable resource that can provide energy and actually can provide carbon char and can be dealt with in a way that's non-polluting. It's a high technology solution. There's a lot of public pushback against that sort of thing. Everybody wants their solid waste now that we've filled Staten Island. I don't know where it's going to go, maybe South America or someplace. But, basically that's an issue to be dealt with, but frankly, it's a resource. Another scale issue that we have is we like to put our sewage treatment plants and our fuel-fired generation plants way out in the middle of nowhere, where the potentially useful byproducts of that process are too far away to be used. So the sewage treatment plant effluent, what do? We dump it in the river. The waste heat from the generation, which we could use to heat our bath water, we dump in the river or put into the air. This could be a huge resource, but we have to do things at the right scale. So we begin to look at, what it means to make a city with our buildings. We look at what happens with regard to how the city creates a local outside environment. We looked at this study, for example, to see whether or not the potential development around the Javits Center would result in the kinds of issues that exist in Copley Square in Boston. And if you're familiar with that place where winds come in and blow everything around, even when it seems not windy at all elsewhere in the city. We look at issues of solar access. Once again, paying attention to agglomerations, groups of buildings, rather than the performance of individual buildings. We then can start looking at things like a community energy infrastructure, wherein we have a large grid, we have lots of resources, and we make use of them in a very pragmatic way. We put resources where they belong. For example, we put our PVs initially on top of big boxes in Jersey, hopefully out in the desert at some point where the solar resource is maximized. We put our wind generators in places where the wind blows. Yes, we might need to paint them light blue, gray, so you can't see them from the Long Island beaches, but frankly, that's really doable. And then we have sort of an internet of energy, wherein if any single node fails or any single feeder fails, the system just reroutes, and we have no blackouts, and we make use of renewable assets in the best possible way. And similarly, dealing with our water issues. The majority of the water that we use in New York City doesn't have to be potable. Potable water is really only required for personal hygiene, cooking, and ingestion. In many cases, the difference between, let's say, potable water and the condensate that comes off your air conditioning system is merely continuous monitoring. You know, it is as pure, but we don't know that for sure. I'm not going to suggest you drink it, but I'm going to suggest that you wash your car with it. I'm going to suggest that you recharge your cooling tower and water your plants with water that is appropriate for that use and that has not been subjected to the expensive process of monitoring to make sure that it's good for ingestion.